Come on in, folks. Come on in. Come on in, folks. Come on in. Let's have the show that we deserve. If you can hear me, say something and we will begin. The show that we deserve. The show that we deserve. I can see people joining in. People joining in. If you can hear me, say something and we will begin. The show that we deserve. It's 8:12 already. Good morning, Nishant, says Mr. Rajakumar. Mr. Kumar, if you can hear me, should we begin? It's winter mornings, right? So, are we gonna have a further? Oh my god. Oh my god. Should we begin? Can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you. Perfect. Perfect. All right, then we will begin the show that we deserve. The show that we deserve. We deserve it. It's that good. Bum 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 bum. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Thinker's Frequency. We're having such a good time. This is the peak of human civilization. We are working so hard, doing such good work for ourselves, our parents, our kids, our siblings, our husbands, our wives, our friends, everybody. Well, not other people's husbands and wives, I hope. And just when we thought things couldn't get any better, like they couldn't possibly get any better, well, they just did. Call it divine intervention, folks, but things just got a whole lot better. Now we have Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. So let's continue with our journey of reading between the lines, things that are especially interesting and important in the world of business and finance. Let's go. But before we go, you gotta follow a tradition, right? You know the tradition. You know the sweet and sacred tradition of the simultaneous sip. We'll all sip something together and it'll bring us good luck, as it always does, without fail, every day. And all you need for the simultaneous sip is a cup or mug, a glass, a tank, a chalice, a stein, a canteen jug, a flask, or a vessel of any kind. Pour it with your favorite liquid. I like some hot water with black pepper in it. And here we go. Nice. Let's do it again. Sublime. You know what the simultaneous sip says, right? You know what it says? It says that you are not alone. It says that we are in this together. And that's such a beautiful thing to say. With that out of the way, let's begin. Mr. Abhishek Sharma says, good morning, Nishant. Yes, audible. Mr. Piyush Sethi, good morning. Please let me know where to join the WhatsApp community. Mr. Sethi, you wrote it in comments, I guess, one of the videos, YouTube videos. I replied to you. I sent you the link. So that's a announcement group. So I share these announcements. Now, guys, there is a good news and a bad news. What would you like to hear first? A good news or a bad news? Huh? What would you like to hear first? Good news or a bad news? So, Mr. Tishar Tiwari had once told us that, you know, Nishant, never begin with bad news never begin with the bad news. So, Mr. Abhishek Sharma says bad, but I'll start with the good news, right? Because we should never begin with the bad news. So the good news is that I've watched a very good Japanese movie yet again, once again. I found it. So the thing with Japanese movies is that I've exhausted all the English movies, Hindi movies that I could have watched, even some European movies, right? So I used to do a book campaign, right? The 52 books in a year. I did that campaign for 11 years. Now that campaign from 52 books, I never touched 52 books in any of those years, but I averaged 40. So in 11 years, 2012 to 2022, I ended up reading a lot of books. That was my reading. But I wanted to watch just as many movies as well. I'm a huge movie buff. So I did a similar campaign for movies where I started watching at least four movies of each year starting 1967. Four movies of each year starting 1967. Why 1967? Because The Graduate came out in 1967, and that seemed like a good point. And also before 1960, 60s and the 50s and 40s, the movies were black and white. They were not really movies, so cinema was pretty old, right? So I ended up watching a lot of movies. I finished all the good movies that there are in English. So it's a very, very tough struggle for me to actually find good movies in English and Hindi, primarily. So Japanese cinema, however, I've watched the old movies like the 1950s Rashomon and High and Low and Seven Samurai and stuff like that. But Koreeda, Hirokazu Koreeda, sir, is just a legendary director. He's just an extraordinary director, right? I've talked a lot about Still Walking. I've talked a lot about After the Storm, Our Little Sister, and so on and so forth. These films are just beyond words, out of the world. They're just next level, right? They make you experience life in a way that you never thought was possible. So even though you're just watching a movie, it doesn't feel like a movie, right? It seems like you've been transported to Japan, right? And a very beautiful part of Japan. And you're being transported to a very beautiful, bittersweet, symphony, sort of. So the last movie I watched was something called Like Father, Like Son. Okay, great movie. Hirokazu Koreeda once again, and the movie is about a rich couple who finds out that the kid that they've been raising for 6 years is not their kid. Somebody switched their kids. The kid got switched with somebody else, right? So, and then how they deal with that problem, that there is another family who's not as rich, who's raising their kid, the blood kid, right? So now in 100% of the cases, they've been told that kids are to be switched. Now, when they try to switch that kid, what happens, how the family dynamic changes, and how they deal with this situation as humans. That's what Like Father, Like Son is. Beautiful film, just extraordinary stuff. Very, very nice cultural hue. Very thankful to have discovered Koreeda sir. I discovered him last year as well, just last year. So it was just amazing, right? That was the good news. So there's a question: how do you manage time so much while you're pursuing music and business? How do you squeeze in a few reels a day? Well, I don't have a social life. Mr. Sethi, that is the answer. I don't have much of a social life. I'm a pretty big loner, introvert kind of a guy. So that saves a lot of time, right? So I'm not drinking out with friends. That leaves me with a lot of time and space. That's a very good answer to this. But anyway, that was the good news. The bad news is that Bitcoin fell 13%, guys. Crypto fell 13%. S&P also 2.5%. Now, what does this say? What do you think this means, folks? Bitcoin falling 13% in a day. The markets are yet to open on Monday, right? What do you think it signals that Bitcoin crashed 13%. Well, there are a lot of things that could have happened. A Bitcoin whale might have cashed out. As we know, Bitcoin is held by very few individuals. It's a concentrated risk play who have a lot of Bitcoin. So if they trade Bitcoin, it can crash, right? Anytime soon. Like whales have a lot of concentration of Bitcoin. That could be one of the reasons that the whales wanted to cash out. Now, why would the whales want to cash out? Why was there such a selling activity that it fell 13%? There could be a lot of reasons. Let's say, you know, they are expecting something green in the economy. So Bitcoin, they're transferring their money from someplace to someplace else. That could be a reason, right? There could be a reason that uh, there needs to be some new investments which the holders of Bitcoin are looking at, like not stock investments, not finance securities investments, some different investments, right? There's another green opportunity. That could be a reason. Or it could mean that we are in trouble, essentially. It could mean that there is a stress in the signal system, which is being figured out by these, uh, you know, distributed traders of Bitcoin, essentially. Because a lot of people thought that Bitcoin is a hedge to the market, right? That if you want to keep money in the market, it's better to keep money in the Bitcoin as well, because Bitcoin is like gold. So it's a hedge for the market. Well, that is not true. That is not true at all, because S&P came down 2.5%, right? And then Bitcoin came down 13%. So if anything, Bitcoin is just a larger shock play, a more volatile version of stocks itself. So Bitcoin is definitely not a hedge against fiat, against the formal financial system, right? Bitcoin is not gold. Okay. So if Bitcoin is not gold, and if Bitcoin is falling, do you mean that the actual market could also fall? That's a probability. If it's not just a possibility, by the way, it is a probability, because China and US are having a weird situation. China has openly arm twisted US, and Trump is not used to being bullied like that, right? He is like a perpetual bully himself. So Trump getting bullied like that is news to him. So he tried to play hardball with China, said that I'm going to lay on tariffs. I'm going to have tariffs for every tech product that we have, and for every leverage item they have, we have to, and so on and so forth. Right? Markets didn't react favorably to that. And he sort of mellowed his position the next day. He said, I can talk, right? If things go well, I can think about it. So he basically dilly-dallied his position. Now, China has openly uh, sort of bullied US, right, with its rare earth mineral supply and so on. And US says that it also has some leverage on China, but it doesn't. But it doesn't. And Bitcoin, a key indicator of God knows what, but a pretty good proxy of the market itself, is not doing well, which means that there could be some stresses that we might see in times to come. So, folks, brace for impact, right? That's the bad news. Now, a lot of people say that, Nishant, you don't know, right? You don't know. And how are you saying that? Some people are saying this, some people are saying that. I'm like, sure, I don't know, right? I don't know. That's cool. The beauty is that the world runs on what you don't know. Now, we've talked about that there's a small matrix which I should have brought or drawn, but it's a known unknown matrix, right? 2 by 2 Jory window, known unknown, known unknown. So there's no known, something that you're aware of and something that you understand. That's known. That's the comfort zone, right? You're aware of this, you understand this, it's cool, right? On the left of, wherever you're looking the graph, after you move here, there comes the known unknown. You're aware of this, but you don't understand. Okay? You're aware of this, but you don't understand. Now, this is not that dangerous a situation. Because you're aware of this, you can always gain an understanding. You can read, right? You can understand, you can figure it out. That's no problem. But if you go here, there's something called unknown known. Something that you don't know, but you think you understand. But there is a way, like you don't know how you can ride a bicycle, you don't know the mechanics of it, but you still being able to ride it, right? This is slightly more dangerous because if something wrong happens, you won't be able to fix it. But still, you're aware, you understand it in a vague way. And then there is the unknown unknown, right? The far end of this 2 by 2 matrix. Now that is where the problem begins. You don't know and you don't understand it, right? Now, when you don't know and you don't understand something, that's where magic happens. That's where the opposite of magic happens. And all our lives, we've just got to protect ourselves from that particular play, the unknown unknown. Now, nobody can claim when the market is gonna crash, right? Nobody can claim that. Nobody can say it with certainty. Nobody knows essentially, and nobody even understands it. There's so many things at play, right? There's yen getting the Japanese yields are going up. The US debt is going up. The Chinese exports are going down. So Chinese consumption is going up. Indian economy is going up, right? The AI thing is happening. So nobody understands all of these things. Israel Hamas war is settling down, but Ukraine Russian war is spiking up. So nobody knows. However, the only thing we can do is prepare ourselves for the eventuality of a black swan event. That's the body of work of Mr. Nassim Taleb. That's what black swan, that's what anti-fragile, that's what skin in the game, that's what fooled by randomness is all about. Which is, by the way, one of the foremost works of philosophy, modern philosophy, right? Now, what if tomorrow market crashes for any number of reasons? Would it matter? Would the reason of the crash matter? Right? Just ask yourselves. Would it matter what turned out to be the reason of tomorrow's crash? Would it matter? Do you think it would matter if tomorrow the market crashed and you found out the reason of it day after tomorrow? Would it really make any difference to your lives? The answer is no, right? So the best thing you can do is essentially brace for impact or put yourself in a position where you could somehow gain from the disorder, right? Which is why people are piling up on gold unknowingly, right? That's just wisdom of crowds. People don't know why they're doing it, but people feel that there's something wrong that could be happening with the market, and gold is a great hedge. So that's what's going on. If you look at an analogy for this perspective, it's called insurance, right? It's insurance. So you buy insurance. This is the time to buy insurance. People say there's no time to buy insurance. You should always you should never time insurance. You should always buy it, and that's right. But sometimes the risks just look far too great. And right now we don't know what's happening with these things. So that was the bad news, folks. Good news was that I watched a great Japanese movie. The bad news was that the Bitcoin essentially crashed 13%, and you don't know what's happening next. So maybe it all goes well tomorrow, right? But there are systemic risks. Everybody knows them. It's like, when do those risks materialize? Now, how do risks materialize, you ask? What can be a trigger? A trigger is very simple, right? Somebody wants to buy something. Somebody wants to cash out. Okay. Now, somebody wants to cash out a security, and that security turns out to be bad, right? Somebody wants to cash out and he is not being able to cash out. Or somebody wants to cash out, but in order to pay that person, this person who is supposed to pay just goes bankrupt. And then second order effects of that just ruin everything. That's how crashes begin. There's a very small trigger, very small domino, and then that lights the fire, right? So that's what's going on, folks, with the world economy. Very weird situations. But not sounding an alarm, would it be like, how would you characterize what I just said? Would you say that I'm being an alarmist, I'm being a conspiracy theorist, or what? What would be the right way to essentially characterize my spiel for the last 5 minutes, right? I think it's just a cautionary message, a message of caution, a note of caution. I think that's the right way to put it, because a lot of people, they feel that they'll be able to time the crash, right? But what happens is when a crash happens, suddenly your stock portfolio goes 30% down, 40% down, right? 50. So if you're like having 5 lakh, 10 lakh rupee, 20 lakh rupee stocks, they're suddenly 10 lakhs. So you've lost 10 lakhs in a day. So you don't want to do that, right? Uh, that's exactly why you're seeing so much of action happening in gold. Because when gold goes up, uh, it signals something, and gold goes down long after the crash has sort of subsided. That's when people actually start taking money out of gold and invest in a new economy, the restarted economy, right? So that is a note of caution. I don't know when it's going to pan out, but it's important to know since we are talking, right? Very important. Moving on. uh, there's something called X Factor must for CXO job these days, tackling turmoil. Executive search firms and companies looking for leaders with experience in dealing with disruption and global uncertainty. Today, I'm just giving you a full disclosure. The news day is pretty dull. So you're going to read a lot of bullshit stories like these. Just today, right? Today, only today, not yesterday, not day before. Today, CXOs need to be, disruption ready. Just today, executive firms are waking up and realizing अब हमें वो इंसान चाहिए जो डिसरप्शन हैंडल कर सके. 2008 में नहीं चाहिए था, राइट? 1999 के बाद नहीं चाहिए था. We didn't need that at 2000. We didn't need that at 2008. We didn't need that, for after 1987. But right now, we need somebody who is good at dealing with disruption or global uncertainty. So just today, we are figuring out that we don't want a normal guy. We want somebody who can handle. So this is a bullshit piece, right? But the crux is that they're looking roadie banega to roadie. So they're looking at roadies kind of material when they're hiring C-suite kind of people, right? Speaking of roadie material, Mr. Anil Ambani is getting a lot of CBI heat, man. So, CFO of Reliance Power has been arrested, and CBI has flagged interlinked transaction between Reliance ADA, Yes Bank, and RNMF. So a lot of actions happening on Reliance. I don't know why that's happening, but this is getting heated up, right? They found out the usual money trail, that they got loans. Then Reliance had the Nippon mutual fund thing that invested in Yes Bank, and circular transactions which held both of them. So that's been going on forever. There's no news. But what's new is that somehow these government agencies or these, government agencies are piling up on Mr. Anil Ambani. Now, and I wonder why they're doing that. They had become pretty pro him, right? They were trying to support him, and the empire was coming out of trouble. The Reliance, the Reliance Anil Ambani empire. They raised 6,000 crores. One of the units. Which unit was that? Reliance Infrastructure, was it? Anyway, but they're just ganging up on Reliance now. So I don't know why. SBI termed their loan as fraud, and then everything just, started crashing in. Moving on. So much so that the CFO has been arrested. Just imagine what's going to happen now. Right? Canadian foreign ministers are meeting India to mend ties. Canadian leadership under Trudeau has been a very bad leadership for the country, because they've been harboring a lot of anti-India separatism, separatist insurgent kind of people, right? Khalistani movement, the hotbed of Khalistani movement is Canada. So they are coming to mend ties, these bunch of assholes. But let's see what happens in that direction, right? Children plug into AI chat box, leaving the reality parents behind. So just as we were dealing with smartphone, addiction as a problem, smartphone addiction was social media based, but that social media based smartphone addiction has evolved into AI led smartphone addiction, where children are chatting with AI chatbots too much, right? My friend made this company Rumik.ai, which has an AI girlfriend, Era, right? They've raised $6.5 million. So a lot of people are essentially talking to these AI bots incessantly, like, and they are killing their skills of talking to actual people because AI is essentially a sycophantic conversation companion, which leads to more and more problems because when you shift out of that sycophantic conversation, it becomes difficult for you to sustain actual talks, right? Now that's what's going on in India as well. Parents are worried, so on and so forth. Every day there comes a news which talks about the perils of smartphone uh, addiction. However, who tries to solve smartphone addiction? Nobody, right? I tried my best. I started this company called Seneca, right? The distraction free smartphone, a smartphone designed to be uh, not distracting, right? Fully functional smartphone. It'll have every utility, but not social media and gaming and entertainment and so on and so forth. A work phone, sort of a BlackBerry, right? But it didn't fly, right? Investor interest didn't couldn't be gathered. But every day we get to hear these things, right? EU grills Snapchat, YouTube, Apple over child risks. So European Union is talking about how these apps have been hurting people, which is also not anything new, right? Moving on, dry fruits trade gets more crunch in festive splurge. So dry fruits are getting a festive splurge. Imports of dry fruits are rising, cashew nuts and so on and so forth, and those are taking a pretty solid space as far as the basket is considered, the gift basket. Now, why do you think have the imports of dry fruits uh, gone up significantly? Why do you think that has happened? Right? The answer to this lies in an insight that we keep talking about. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency would know that most business outcomes are the result of the political will. You know about that? We've talked about that, right? Every business outcome is the result of the political will, right? So people think that business is happening is because people want to do business, is because people create businesses, and so on and so forth. But that's not the case. It's the political will that leads to those directions. Now, why do you think dry fruits gained? Because India cut a very nice deal with the Middle East, right? That's why dry fruits gain. So that is how, because some politicians thought it was a good idea to trade, to have a better trade conditions for dry fruits. So suddenly dry fruits trade expanded. Every trader who must be dealing with dry fruits saw that going on. The inflation number on cashew nuts is 9.4%, right? Average imports are growing uh, in the festive season by leaps and bounds. So that's because the trade situation between India and UAE and the Middle East in general is very favorable for the particular thing, right? Data reflects a seasonal demand surge around India's festive when cultural consumption patterns simplify. This is a time when consumption goes beyond homes and so on and so forth. Uh, Monthly imports went up and better deal as one of the reasons. So we've talked a lot about this, right? We think that we are creating businesses, but at the end of the day, it's just the invisible hand is not so invisible. It's actually the hand of the politician. The invisible hand, of course, is the metaphor, is the reference to Adam Smith's theory of invisible hand, right? That the market fixes everything. It's actually the politician's hand. That's what the invisible hand is. Moving on. Indians are planning short and sweet Diwali trips, right? So there's a new way of celebrating Diwali when it comes to India, and that is foreign trips to Vietnam, to Thailand, to all sorts of places, right? Thailand, Singapore, and Vietnam. They've become the new Goa for Indians, and they're actually moving on, right? So Indians are experiencing a lot of foreign travel. Uh, Leisure trip is making 46% of festive trips, with Vietnam stealing the spotlight. So these travel operators, they are creating trips which are family friendly. So these upper middle class, or let's say uh, HNIs or moderate HNIs, they're actually, instead of celebrating Diwali in India, they're going outside the country and experiencing, uh, you know, global hospitality, which is bad news for the Indian consumption story, right? Because this is a drain on the forex, which is sad. But that's exactly what's happening now. Why is this happening? Because the travel is easier. Travel is easier. You know, it's simpler. There's more air accessibility, and so on and so forth, which is also a result of the political will, by the way. So, uh, this is what's happening with this particular play. Moving on, Mr. Abhishek Sharma asks, on dry fruit deal, what did India gain by more imports? So they had to make something favorable. They must have traded it off with something else, right? So that's because UAE is a very very big investor for India, as we've talked about. You remember that Australian project that India was looking at, the housing project worth $500 billion, which Mr. Piyush Goyal was looking at. So what did he say when it came to that project? He said that we're going to go to UAE and ask for funding, right? So they are our funding partners. Maybe that's why, this particular deal was sweetened. It's not that this deal was not already comfortable. It was comfortable, but it's gotten better, right? Moving on, PM has launched a 35,000 crore agricultural scheme extravaganza for seed self-reliance, empowering farmers in 100 district for PM Dhan Dhanya Krishi Yojana. So this is one of the schemes. Got it. Thanks, Mr. Says Mr. Abhishek Sharma. Of course. Well, that's what you come to me for. Moving on. Seed and nutrition self-reliance. Agri-boost. SEBI overhauled surveillance to keep fraudulent trades in check. Bulk deals are a problem. Well, we've talked a lot about that. SEBI is basically looking at improving its compliance enforcement, right, in a lot of ways. So fraud is a major problem. We have revamped our data warehouse system to develop new rule-based alerts to identify pump and dump patterns. So pump and dump patterns are obviously problematic, which is why SEBI is these people are always trying. It's a cat and mouse game. By the way, if you want to read a very good book about a cat and mouse game, which is this particular play, right? The compliance, the income tax, the fight between income tax and tax evaders, that's always an ever evolving cat and mouse game, right? This guy figures out a way to dodge tax. The taxman comes back with a better way to figure it out. This guy figures out a better way. Taxman finds out a better way to figure things out, and so on and so forth. That book is called Business Adventures. So it was a Bill Gates recommended book, and it's a pretty good book. They have a story on how the tax people in America have been trying to figure out a way to deal with aggressive tax evasion. So that's what SEBI is essentially trying to do. We are constantly update our regulatory frameworks in this regard to ensure fair, transparent, and resilient market. Well, that's no surprise. Moving on. CBIC launched vigilance probe against Chennai custom officials. Well, we've talked about that, Mr. Praveen Ganeshan and Wintrack's case, right? You remember? We had a conversation. CBIC launched a vigilance probe, and you know what they did? All the people who were responsible for that corruption, the Babus, they've been transferred out, okay? While the private importers who were dealing with these people, their licenses have been cancelled. So they put out the trader, they put the trader out of the business, but they just transferred the Babu from one jurisdiction to another. So when you transfer a Babu who are you actually punishing? Right? Are you punishing the Babu? Of course not. You're not punishing the Babu. You're punishing the jurisdiction to which he is transferred, right? Because as a corrupt guy is a corrupt guy, right? Uh, if he's getting transferred, he's just getting transferred. But the people who are going to have to deal with that asshole, they are basically getting punished, right? So that's what's happening, and they are essentially putting gun. I can imagine these people putting a gun to Praveen Ganeshan, Mr. Ganeshan's head, and he's writing tweets that these people are conducting a fair investigation. I'm really happy with the government. They're literally making him say that. It sounds so unnatural that it's almost unbelievable. They're literally making him write tweets, right, in which he's admitting that these guys are doing a great job. They're making him say that. At least that's what it seems to me. So this problem is unfixable, and maybe people who are leaving India have something figured out, right? Uh, Speaking of which, there's another story which is talking about Indians and how they're finding out ways to move out of India, right? And where do they go when they're trying to escape India? US, UK, Australia, and Middle East. So these are the top places: US, Canada, UK, Australia, and then the Middle East. So nothing surprising here as well, right? Moving on. 330 people every year go to US for studies. A lot of people for Canada, and so on and so forth. So maybe what you're looking at is like 10 lakh rich people exiting India because of these, incidents. Moving on. China's aggressive embrace of clean energy is powering its electric cars and high-speed trains. Moving on. So we've talked a lot about how China is essentially the clean energy boss of the world, right? China will soon be making more solar energy than the entire energy of the US. Just solar. So they are kings of solar. And what they're doing is, but the solar problem with China is that most of the solar thing that they get, these things are in the West China, right? But most of the population is in East China, right? So what they're trying to do is trying to make like high speed, high potential grids to transport the solar power to their high population density areas, right? And not just that, it's because it's powering their trains, their cars, and so on and so forth. Now that's what they're doing. They're much, much ahead of US. Some numbers if you're interested, right? Uh, in China, the longest ultra high voltage power line stretches more than 2,000 miles. 2,000 miles. From far northwest to populous southeast, the equivalent of Idaho to New York. So Indians wouldn't have Idaho to New York reference, but let's say 2,000 miles. 2,000 miles is 2,800 kilometers, 3,000 kilometers. So 3,000 kilometers, how much is Delhi to Mumbai distance? Delhi to Mumbai is 1,400 kilometers. So let's say Delhi to Bangalore. That's 2,000 kilometers. So Delhi to Kanyakumari. Delhi to Kanyakumari is 2,800 kilometers approximately. So China, the longest voltage power line stretches 2,000 miles. So Delhi to Kanyakumari. Mr. Abhishek Sharma calculated faster than me. Thank you, Mr. Sharma. So they have their power lines like as long as Delhi to Kanyakumari, right? Which is huge, which is obviously extraordinary. And people are not resisting, people don't resist. Half the country's new cars are battery operated, and 30,000 miles of high-speed railway run on electricity. And wind and solar are a huge source of that. More than 90% of China's 1.4 billion people live in the east, where cloudy days, windy nights, and sluggish rivers limit potential for clean energy. So that's what's going on. US has nothing in comparison, absolutely nothing. US in comparison was starting with drill baby drill, right? Because That's what was important to them. But this is scary. The progress, the Chinese progress, is so amazing that it's scary. How does that sound to you? The Chinese progress in every direction is so amazing that it's scary to everybody. Not India is no competition. We're not even on the radar. It's scary to US. So when the president of US tries to bully China, their stocks go down. That's what happens. But speaking of bullying and speaking of this trade war, Trump had said that he's going to raise the tariffs to China, but he says if these things are okay, I might not do it. So he's keeping it open because he really doesn't have any chips against China. What tech companies are you going to ban for China? You don't have any pull, right? China has their own tech companies. China has already talked about not depending on Nvidia, right? China has 90% of your API supplies, the active pharmaceutical supplies, right? China has all of the electric vehicle manufacturing, all of the solar manufacturing. China makes more steel than the rest of the world combined, right? What are you gonna do against China? You can't do anything, right? That's what US needs to figure out now. You only have a big market, right? Your $30 trillion economy. The most you can do is just make it expensive for those products to come to your market. But they'll route their products and still make money, right? They'll find routes to basically divert their products and they'll still make money. And you won't even be able to replace the products they're selling you because that's how you sold your country for 30 years. With the whole McKinsey types, right? The whole offshoring revolution, you killed your country. You can't fight it. And but that realization has not come in just yet. Moving on, retired Major Mr. Amit Bansal has written an article called Wanted, a doctrine for drones. As drones transform warfare, India needs to develop clear manufacturing and military policies regarding them. Now, before Mr. Bansal, who wrote about this? Do you remember? Do you remember, folks? I'd like to know. Like, it should be common knowledge. Before Mr. Amit Bansal, who wrote about India's need for focus on drones as far as defense manufacturing is concerned? Come on, come on, come on. I'll take the credit here. It was me. Nobody said that. You did. Mr. Abhishek Sharma is very kind. Thank you, thank you. But yeah, I did. And Mr. Bansal is right on charts. So he's saying that the global market of unmanned vehicle tells a story of explosive growth. 1995 to 2010, it was 1 billion to 3 billion. By 2015, 8 billion. And 2020, 20 billion. And 2025, it's going to be roughly 50 billion. So from 20 billion in 2020, it's going to be 2025, $40 billion. So it's going to double in 5 years. Double in 5 years, guys. Right? India has less than 4% of the drone manufacturing play. 40% of its components are supplied indirect routes through China. China has most of some numbers about Chinese might as far as drone manufacturing. China supplying 70% of global drone electronics. 70%, right? India has nothing. Moving on, when it comes to, there is some number which I'm missing, which was very important. I should have highlighted it, but let me just figure it out. Yeah. China exports nearly 70% of drone electronics. India's drone industry is still in its infancy, contributing less than 4%. US leads in market value, commanding nearly 60% share, with Israel close behind. So US, China and India not anywhere in drones. A lot of money can be saved if we stop focusing on the fighter crafts. Just let them come from wherever they're coming. But the whole Rustam thing and Cat's Warrior, these things need a real push. But at this moment, Indian government has not really warmed up to it. And this needs to be on a war footing kind of a play. That screw these fighter jets, we'll import them. We don't need to make fighter jets anymore. Make drones, make counter drones, make drones, make counter drones, and so on and so forth. Right? Fighter jets will just kill pilots. Moving on, there is talk about AI art, right? If AI art has any market value. So some art exhibition plays are actually exhibiting AI art. They are talking. They've signaled that they would want to buy AI art. But what is my perspective on AI art? I'll tell you. Art, most of the people don't care about art, right? Most people don't have anything to do with art. So they just watch, or they just follow, they just listen to whatever other people are listening. They just watch whatever other people are watching, you know. But when it comes to art, installation art, right? The story behind that art is very important, right? Even when it comes to music, when it comes to movies, when it comes to uh, paintings and so on and so forth, we don't like art without an underlying story behind it, right? We don't do that. And that becomes very important when it comes to all forms of art, right? The man who makes the art is as much, if not more, important than the art piece itself, right? But that doesn't apply to the overall big majority who doesn't have any clue on who's making what, right? But people who really push art, they care, and they are most important in the market. Now, what does it mean for the art installation market? The people, the paintings that are bought, right? Now that market is a slightly different play, because while the art aficionados, the enthusiasts do care about it, most of it is basically just money for investments. So art, that kind of product, those kinds of products, they're not bought because of the art value. They are bought because of the investment value. Now, one of the ways of ensuring the investment value is basically the story of the artist himself, right? That's why when you look at a shitty painting, but it's by a very big painter, right? That it instantly gets very highly valued, right? And you know what? I read the biography of Leonardo da Vinci, sir, the polymath, right? What happens in the art world is that every year, every few years, they find a new painting which is somehow related to Da Vinci. Some people say that Mr. Da Vinci, like the legend, made this painting. Somebody says, oh no, it wasn't him, but his student. Somebody says his student. But a $10 painting can become worth millions and millions of dollars just because it gets attached to the name of Da Vinci, or Da Vinci's butler, or Da Vinci's dog's fifth bitch, right? So that's what happens with the art market. The story behind the art is very important, right? Now, can AI be the story is the question. Do you think AI can be the story to evaluate art? You understand what I'm saying? Since these people find out ways to come out with paintings vaguely related or related to Da Vinci, and they literally do that. So they find out a painting, they say, oh, this is this many years old. So this must have been created in 1563, right? Somewhere around Da Vinci's area. So they try to date it. And then these expert panels of historians said, oh, this brush stroke resembles Da Vinci's style. Oh, but this particular thing resembles Da Vinci's style. But then they say, oh, but this painting was found here, but he was there. Oh, so it must have been his student, or his maid who learnt painting from him, and so on and so forth, right? And that's true story. I'm not even screwing around, right? Can AI be that story which makes these art pieces a good investment proposition? If yes, they're gonna sell. If no, they're not gonna sell. Because these people, they're not buying art for art. They're basically uh, tax saving instruments of financial instruments. Moving on. Bhutan is spearheading a wine revolution. Bhutan is making wines. So because of the change in patterns and so on and so forth, climate pattern, yes, they can always tweak it in some way or the another. Like they say, it's Da Vinci inspired, right? That's exactly right, Mr. Sharma. So Bhutan is making some sort of wines, right? There's a question by Mr. Manish Kondhalkar. Any new podcast coming? You mean me? Am I talking to somebody? No, not really. Not really. I'm not looking at talking to anybody for a podcast. Moving on. So Bhutan is making some wines. They've been very, very recent when it comes to the whole wine revolution, right? It began in a 2016 marathon somewhere in the middle of Punakha Valley Run, right? 2019, Bhutan's experiment came. 17 grape species planted across elevations from 150-meter to 3000-meter in a country where altitude is measured not in meters of feet but in spiritual significance. First harvest came in 2023, first commercial vintage in 2024, and the debut 7.5-liter bottle was auctioned for $18,000. So Bhutan is looking at making wine, which is great. But we discovered a big a fact in one of the episodes of Thinker's Frequency. Old viewers might remember. No matter where the wine is made, the cork of the wine is made in one European country. Which country was that? Do you remember the country which made almost all of the wine corks? Was it Netherlands? Was it the Dutch who made all the corks? We figured out, right, that corks, it just didn't make sense to make corks anywhere else in the world. So these people have been making corks and they export corks all over the world. The wine, the corks which go over them. Which country was that? Country which makes all wine corks. Portugal's dominance in cork, manufacturing. World's leading significant margin. 70% of oils of all wine stoppers. Portugal, says Mr. Abhishek Sharma. Thank you so much. So that's where the cork is gonna come from. Well, you can be sure of that, which is very interesting if I think about it. Moving on. Well, we've talked a lot about the Trump tariffs and how he's trying to take a U-turn. He's trying to mellow down on China. Let's see what happens. We've talked about India's exports of people, how India is exporting people, right? Rajya Sabha session says 28,000 people left to US in 2023. Became citizens, like renounced citizenship, not just staying there, but renouncing their citizenships. Australia 16,000, Canada 17,900, and 28,000 USA. So any country who's basically exporting people is not doing well in a way, right? That's one way to figure out what's happening. That if you open the gates, which way are people coming, right? So Mr. Peter Thiel came out with this very interesting argument. He says, people have doubts about communism, right? Now they should just look at history and figure out when the Berlin Wall fell, which direction did people go to? Right? That's what he said when it came to communism. And then he said, with the whole Korea thing, which side did people go to? So he's always talking about like which side are people going to? So if you open the gates of the world, will people come to India or will people exit India is a very good measure of how India is doing. And definitely India is not doing something right. And India is doing a lot wrong if people, rich people, because nobody who goes out of India is actually poor, right? So if rich people are finding out a way to exit the country, there should be something that we must be very, very bothered about, right? That is some question. And the answer is very simple. It's the incentives, right? It's the incentives. The Indians are not incentivized to do good work. They are not incentivized to be good, honest people. All the incentives are lined up to be crooks, to make us crooks, right? And the reason for that is judiciary, because that's what's supposed to enforce, these incentives on people, the good behavior, the bad behavior. I wrote a huge article on it. And with that, we'll come to the end of the 139th episode of Thinker's Frequency, folks. Our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. I hope you had fun. I hope you learned something. I learned a lot. I read a lot. I had a lot of fun. It's always a lot of fun. Uh, you know, it's 9:06. We have some time. We can take some questions, right? If we don't have questions, we're gonna punch in anytime soon. And I'll wish you a beautiful day, personally and professionally. And I'll talk about seeing you tomorrow, same place, same time, hopefully, right? The weather is beautiful. Uh, the sun is very, very gentle. The breeze is cool. It's a beautiful day to be alive, and it's only gonna be better, right? So, with that, I guess we should leave, right? Anybody has any questions? I've also finished my beverage. How much do you think a better policy in the country can do in economy? Policing. Okay. Mr. Piyush Sethi asks, how much do you think a better policing in the country can do in an economy? So policing is of course the implementation of incentives, right? Bad behavior, good behavior, that is basically enforced by police. A good police essentially makes sure that the law and order is tight. The law and order defines everything. Look at El Salvador. We used to be the most unsafe country in the world, now the safest country in the Western Hemisphere, right? Homicides rates coming down from 103 people per 1 lakh to 1 people per 1 lakh in just 10 years. And look at their economy. Because when do you feel safe to start a business? You know what? People are not comfortable in running stores in California because there's so much of loot. There's so much of lacking law and order. So when will you feel comfortable as a businessman to run a company? You know, if you know you'd be getting robbed, would you feel comfortable? You won't be feeling comfortable, right? If you know the policing is bad and there's going to be no retribution for criminals or loots or cheats or frauds or rapists and so on and so forth, is it going to be good? It's not going to be good, right? And that affects the economy in every way. Would body cams make it better? Or like what kind of policy can make police force better in India? Well, body cams are a great idea. Body cams are incredibly helpful. They changed a lot of things in US, by the way. Mandated body cams, right? Police brutality and stuff like that. So they've been proved to. If India is forced to wear body cams, it's gonna be great because that can be like a direct nip in the bud on corruption, because you can't ask for a bribe, you can't shut down your body cam, right? It has to work as the service protocol makes it, and it should be open whatever a person is doing, right? So apart from a designated, let's say, privacy hour, it should be open. But if it's open and it's done, it's just amazing, right? It can solve all problems. An example where continuous surveillance in that kind of a regard helps a lot is the dash cam business. So cars who have dash cams, right? If you have a dash cam, you're very safe because you won't have any problems as far as insurance or even road rage incidents are considered, right? Because everything is going to be recorded. Sunlight is the best disinfectant, they say. So definitely body cams can revolutionize the country. They're one of the small things that can change, that can have an extraordinary second order effect. That their second order effect could be just out of the world, right? Because there's just one equipment that changes everything. So body cams are great, definitely awesome. Uh, any other question, folks? That was a nice discussion. Body cams, I've been following. I've wanted, back in 2022 when my company died, Spot Health, I was evaluating a few business opportunities and I thought I'd start something in the direction of dash cams. So India is a perpetually low dash cam penetration country. Indian cars don't have active dash cams, due to which there are a lot of road rage incidents, there are a lot of insurance incidents, there's a lot of case incidents and so on and so forth, right? If dash cams are working, right, it could be just amazing, right? And you could have your dash cam company. But the thing is, the only way to be a dash cam provider was to be a trader, because we couldn't make our own dash cam. We could have just a security layer or a software layer added to it, like a tracking play. So the value addition, my personal value addition to that technology wasn't that great, so I didn't pursue it. But it is a great business. If somebody doesn't care about the so-called creative aspect of a business, right, it's just amazing, right? Dashcam, very less penetration and great business model. You can sell and it can make money also, right? And amazing business. It solves also all sorts of problems, it's just amazing. So no other questions, folks. It's 9:11. We'll have to stay on for one more minute, right? We can't stop at 9:11. Can we? Should we? Should we stop at 9:11, folks? I don't think so. Mr. Nate Chase Sand says, I listen on my commute. It helps me prep clients' calls with fresh market angles. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Nate Shanes. If everybody's done, should we leave, folks? Yeah. Right? There are no questions, right? There are no questions. So thank you. It was so nice talking to all of you. Have a beautiful day yet again. And we'll see each other tomorrow, if tomorrow comes. Thanks. Take care, folks. It was really nice talking. I need to thank Mr. Rajakumar, Mr. Abhishek Sharma, Mr. Piyush Sethi, Mr. Manish Kondhalkar, Mr. Nate Shantz, and everybody else who joined. Please take care and have a beautiful day. Thanks for your time. Have a great day. Thank you, Mr. Sharma. So sweet of you. Oh, please, guys, please don't forget to share this as much as possible. I forgot to tell you in the morning itself, right? Please share this far and wide. We're not growing, and that's a very, very big problem. I should have said this before I forgot. Please share this. Do whatever you can to grow this thing. This needs to grow. We are at 8 people right now on LinkedIn, on YouTube, 5 people on LinkedIn. This is the same number of people we had in the beginning, like 139 days ago. Please do something to grow it. Share it. Do whatever you can, but share it on your WhatsApp status or something of that sort. But just please do something, right? Thank you so much. Bye-bye.